What type of training, if any, did you go through after that?
They sent me down to the academy for a week-long training, called, at that time called lead worker training.
Okay. Did that occur day one of being a sergeant, or when did that occur?
You know, it was roughly 3 months into being a sergeant.
So when you're appointed sergeant, they basically handed you the keys, or say go to it?
Yes, prior to actually making sergeant, I was acting sergeant a lot because they were down numbers for the sergeants, so they needed positions filled, so they just made me a sergeant for that day.
Okay. So it's an on-the-job type of training situation?
Yes.
Now, Tim had talked about what sergeants do at Chester. What do sergeants at Muncie operate the same way that you have to work at various positions throughout the facility?
Yes.
And what types of posts do they have for sergeants at Muncie?
Control center, rear gate, front gate, RHU, training sergeant, yard sergeant, RHU sergeant.
So it seems like there's a myriad of posts that you have to work as a sergeant
Yes.
at Muncie also. And you have the responsibility to know how all those posts operate.
Absolutely.
Now, take us to let's talk about numbers now at Muncie. A typical block, is there a block system at Muncie too, or is it different?
Over the years, it's changed. It was housing units. We actually referred to them as housing units, and they actually had names like McCullough or Newman. However, to get in line with all the mail institutions, they actually changed it to letters. So we now have A block, B block. We still refer to them as housing units.
And take us to a typical block. What's the makeup of inmates, COs and CO2s?
There's 2 floors. There's roughly anywhere between 50 and 100 on the first floor of any given block on an average, and then about double that on the second floor because of the back hall. They have a front hall, both sides, and then there's a common room in the dead center of the building upstairs, and then there's a back hall that has 2 sides.
And so if we're talking 50 to 100 on the first floor, we're talking at least 100 on the second floor or more?
Roughly that.
Okay. And how many CO1s and CO2s are working at?
1 on the first floor, 1 on the second floor, unless there's meal station and there's only 1 for the entire unit.
Okay. And then would there be a CO2 posted to that block?
No,
All right.
not necessarily. There's a CO2 that's called a yard sergeant, or area sergeant, zone sergeant, and they are assigned to all those blocks, and they have to make their way around to stop in and make sure, you know, if there was a problem, they would go to that housing unit.
And you've heard testimony about the vest. Have you been mandated to wear the vest also?
Absolutely.
And what is your opinion in regard to the vest? Do you like to wear it? Or?
No. I worked in the RHU. I was the RHU sergeant shortly after I became sergeant. I was assigned there, and the vests were required to be worn at that time. And there's something to be said when you're in the middle of a cell extraction and you're trying to think, you know, to grab the arm, and you're sweating so bad that the heat is getting to you and your chest is getting so hot that you can't help but constantly refer back to the way you're feeling, and you're sitting there trying to tell yourself, no, pull yourself together, the team needs you, the team needs you. And it tends to get you a little confused when you're in there.
You said to me at one point, when you're at work sometimes you feel as if you're waiting for the bomb to drop. What did you mean by that?
Because it can happen anywhere. I was employed by the Department of Corrections during the Campbell riot. And I watched out on TV. I took care of, I worked double shifts because my CERT team was called out and we had to go to Campbell to assist. So we were working mandates left and right, double shifts almost every day. And knowing that it happened there and talking to some of the staff members there, I know that it can happen anywhere. So you just wait for that bomb to drop. You wait for that one group of inmates because the gang's getting, the gang violence increasing. We have gang, activity at female jails also. A lot of people don't think so. They think, oh, it's just a male thing. No, I'm sorry, it's a female thing too. And it's going to happen one day. So you just wait for it. wrong place, wrong time, wrong friends, and you can end up in jail.
You try to forget about work when you're out?
I do try. I make it a habit of not allowing my friends to talk about work. When we get together, I mean, if there's a gathering with a bunch of people from work, and they start talking about this, that happened, or I walk out. I need to keep it separate. I'm Sergeant Parker inside. I'm Rhonda on the outside.
You've had the opportunity to work in one of the specialized positions that we've been talking about, have you not? Not the ones we've been talking about, but a specialized position.
Yes.
Okay. What position is that?
CISM,
Okay. What do those letters stand for?
Critical Incident Stress Management.
And what is that position involved?
It is the team that after an incident happens, such as a riot, and we can refer to Cole Township, because that was one of that's after the CISM, Department of Corrections really got CISM involved. When Cole Township rioted, the CISM team would go in afterwards and during the debriefing and actually talk to the staff members and let the staff members talk to them. Basically, a listening ear, letting them talk to their own. Because we do understand, you know, a correction officer understands a correction officer. You may talk to me in lawyer lingo and I'm not going to understand everything you say. But when Jason says pie hole, I know exactly what it means. You know, it's just the lingo and, you know, as a peer for CISM, that's what I do, I listen.
And what type of training, what type of programs do you go through to get into that position?
You have to first put in for a request for it. They check your records and make sure that, you know, you had no discipline for, you know, anything. And you can talk to staff members, they check your evaluations, and then they send, once they agree to take you on the team, they send you for a week-long training at the academy.
Okay. And you just had a recent incident with CISM, did you not?
Yes.
And what did that involve?
We had an inmate at Muncie last year. She hung up in one of the house units. It was a newer officer, it was on second shift. The newer officer is the one that found her. And the officer was very distraught. I mean, the first time you see an inmate hanging and lifeless and you have to run in there and cut them down and they're not breathing. And yet you try to give CPR. It's a very traumatic experience. And that happened approximately 9:30 at night, 9:45. I was called at home and I got dressed immediately and got into work. And I sat in the chapel, letting officers cry on my shoulders, talk to me, vent to me, yell at me, and me just be their listening ear until 1 o'clock in the morning. And one thing about CISM is it's officers and other staff members that make up the team. We do this without getting paid. It's a voluntary basis.
Thank you very much, sir.
Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Did you do your MP training at Fort Gordon, Georgia?
Fort McClellan, Alabama.
I was at Fort Gordon, Georgia. You were a better MP than I am.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Yes.
At this time, we're going to call the Chair's maintenance presentation.
State your name for the record, please.
Lauren Wilkins. You guys speak up. I'll think that thing is working. There it is. It froze. It froze. I'm not
Excuse me. Lauren, when did you start with the Department of Corrections?
March of '96.
Okay. And what position did you start in with the Department of Corrections?
I started off as a COT, and then after a year, made it to a CO1.
Okay. Try to bring the mic just closer to you, just so everybody can hear. Prior to joining the Department of Corrections, did you have any experience in the military?
I did 5 years in the military in the United States Navy.
Okay. And trade while you were at the Navy?
I was an electrician and search and rescue,
Okay. How long did you work as a CO1?
including my COT time. I was in corrections CO1 for 12 and a half years.
Okay. And did you, what is your current position?
I am now a correction electrical trade instructor.
Okay. And what was the reason that you changed jobs?
Trying for promotion to better my career and just anything in general. I mean,
Well, let me ask you this, from a CO1 to a correctional electronic trade instructor, did you move up in class pay?
yes,
Okay. Is that a reason why you went to the electrical trade instructor position?
partially yes.
All right. Did you also, was there, what are the hours or the work schedule of a correction electronic trade instructor?
Electrical.
Electrical trade
And
instructor.
it's 8 to 4 Monday through Friday.
And what's that compared to a CO's schedule?
As a CO, your hours change. I mean, you might be on a set shift, but you work rotating days off. You never have weekends off. You're continuously not knowing when and why you need to be there. You know why you need to be there, but this week you might be off Monday, Tuesday. Next week you might be off Tuesday, Wednesday. You can never really plan on doing anything.
So as a trade instructor, you're Monday through Friday, so did you consider that an advancement in your career?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is your position as a trade instructor, there's other trade instructors that are at the DLC, correct?
Correct.
A carpenter trade instructor, what are some of the other ones?
We have carpenter, we have plumbers, we have painters, we have masonry. As you spoke yesterday, Huntington also has a soap plant.
And are these positions generally Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 positions?
Monday through Friday, 8 to 4.
8 to 4, I'm sorry. Now, prior to becoming a trade instructor, did you try to advance your career into the sergeant's position?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do in that regard?
I took the civil service test to 4 sergeant, scored got a score, and when the sergeant's position came open, I applied for it, and I was refused.
So you took the test, you gained the appropriate score to move to the next phase, but you just didn't get picked for one of the spots?
Correct.
How many times did you do that?
As a sergeant, I was refused 3 times.
Okay. Now, did you prior to becoming a trade instructor, this time, did you try that previous to actually getting this appointment?
Meaning, have I put in for this position?
Right.
I would put in for this position, including other positions, a total of 26 times, not including sergeant.
Okay. So in addition to applying for the electrical trade instructor,